A hand grabs onto a rock to stand up in front of the demon while the young man wonders if God was no longer alive. Humanity worshipped gold and revered arcane engineering until they became slaves to themselves. With the sword in front of him, the man asks if this was truly fair, but the demon simply draws its weapon. The boy charges forward, wanting to know what meaning there was in all of this, shouting before attacking the monster and causing an explosion in the area. The best modern post-apocalyptic fantasy game, Arcane Soul. Kim Jun-soo, a 22-year-old student, complains about the game being paid to win, asking how that was fair when a guy who spends nothing can barely enjoy the game. However, the in-game demon says he was strong for someone who didn't spend money there, and says it must be sad to be him since he's playing in auto mode all the time. In Kim Jun-soo curses at him. The creature says it was a fun fight because it had never seen a free-to-play player perform so well. Jun-soo curses at the demon again through the phone screen, asking how this game was fair since he just lost to a dumbass and has over 10,000 hours in it because it's literally a pay-to-win game. But he thinks the idiot is actually him because he keeps wasting time in a game like this and still does daily missions before working, having no social life at all. Even after winning that, he thought the game's free spin would give him another Kim warrior. However, he looks surprised at his phone. A white chest appears on his screen, and the guy wonders about the platinum chest, wanting to know what it was and shouting about it right after since he got the SSR level character, Celestial Demon. He says that was the best unit in the game, and the chance of getting it from a free spin was 0.00006%. So, he gets excited for having gotten the rarest character in the game, which would surely be the game of the year for 2024. He says he'll level up that character since it can be upgraded just by defeating monsters. But the easiest way to level up characters in the game was using characters he had already leveled up before. And now he's no longer jealous of the hares who spend millions on the game, deciding to use all of his Kim warriors to level up the Celestial Demon, saying goodbye to his Kim because now he has a Celestial Demon. Another car approaches while the young man is off guard. Almost running over the student, he wonders if this was really about to happen to him, but suddenly wakes up alone. He was bandaged and wonders what happened. Wanted to know why he was in the hospital now. His head hurts for a moment, remembering the truck in front of him, and just before it hit him, it tried to turn but hit him straight on. Junu remembers that he got hit by a truck. A nurse enters the room suddenly and asks if Warrior Kim has finally woken up. She says she'll call a doctor, and the guy wonders why she's calling him that. That was Warrior Kim, a 22-year-old man who ended up in a hospital with dislocated and injured limbs due to an accident. Jun-soo says that it really says Warrior Kim and wonders what that means because it felt like he was being punished for using his kin warriors to level up the Celestial Demon. But out of nowhere, he became a Kim himself, suddenly touching his foot to the floor and feeling extreme pain throughout his body. The guy lets out a terrifying scream. The nurse rushes over asking Warrior Kim not to move, but Jun-soo just complains that it hurts a lot. The doctor says he was hit by a truck and passed out. But now they need to run some tests because he needs a magical MRI and an arcane X-ray. And Jun-soo repeats that in confusion, wanting to know what they were talking about with this Warrior Kim and magic. At the hospital reception, Kim is there. A woman calculates that with the emergency room, hospitalization, magical X-ray, MRI, and other exams, all that would cost 22 million won. Kim Jun-soo wonders why he has to pay 22 million if he stayed there for 4 days. But the woman tells him he doesn't have insurance, so he has to pay it all, which just annoys the guy, saying, every Korean has government health coverage. The girl wants to know what national government even is, because he has no Legion contract or Magic Tower insurance. The guy repeats that and asks what she's talking about, but he remembers those names from somewhere, trying to recall where he saw them before. Because there was the Legion, the mega corporations, the Divine Tower, and the Holy Order, the 4 dominant factions of Seoul, and the same groups from the game Arcane. In a world where God abandoned humanity, Arcane science developed greatly. The polluted land was filled with monsters, and humans modified their bodies to survive. The boy thinks it all sucks. To put it simply, it was a hard world to live in, and he had been thrown right into it. He was heading home happily after obtaining the Celestial Demon, but ended up becoming a tutorial character in the game. And maybe this was his divine judgment from the warriors. The room of Warrior Kim was smaller than the students, making him wonder why he was so poor. His body was completely broken, and he didn't even have money, not knowing what to do. Because if this really was Arcane Sue, soon events like nuclear wars and dimensional rifts and the resurrection of the ancient gods would happen, turning this place into a hell. He doesn't know how he ended up there, but standing still would guarantee he'd lose his life. But he notices something different, wondering if his reasoning was right. Kim points at his pen, preparing to stab his own hand. He thinks he needs to check this before it's too late. He stabs his hand with the pen. Blood suddenly starts to flow from it, but the wound emits a green glow and heals right after. Junsu thinks he knew this would work since he acquired the trait wound regeneration, and that was the reason he had evolved countless warrior Kim. He's a tutorial character, and supposedly the only one without a base skill. However, he can unlock his traits and change them, making them more diverse than other characters. And for a strategist like Kim, that was better than being rare. In other words, now that he is warrior Kim, he can gain any trait he wants, regenerating all the injuries in his body. Arcane Soul. In this world, you lose your life if you're poor or weak. If lucky, you'd run away, but he wouldn't run, nor would he lose his life because he would survive. Having 10,000 hours of Arcane Soul experience as a free-to-play player, reaching global rank 9, Junu gets ready to begin his journey. Inside the body of warrior Kim, he heads to a place called the Player Character Office. A bearded man asks if it's warrior Kim's first time at a player character office. The guy confirms and says he plans to get into the mana purification business while thinking he needs money for this terrible role since all he got was a warrior Kim, and that's the only way to make money. The man puts his foot on the table and says it can be called mana purification, but asks if he really knows what dungeons are like, introducing himself as Chi Shinsu, director of the player office. Junsu says he knows, but the director questions it, pointing out there's nothing on his record saying he's ever been in a dungeon. Kim thinks he knew how terrible this job was because there was something called contaminated mana. The reason monsters had taken over Arcane Soul. Dungeon cleansing is the act of removing filth that emits high levels of contaminated mana. High exposure to this mana can kill a person. While the boy agonizes, being consumed by the mana, turning into a demon afterward, because it can cause mutation, making the job even more dangerous. Shinsu says that once they have more people, he'll call him for a team, and the boy thanks him. But the director wants to be sure. He's seen plenty like him come looking for money and return completely broken. Even so, the boy tells the boss to relax because he'll be better than him, surprising the director, but working hard was warrior Kim's specialty. He had 10,000 hours of playtime. The team leader, Servo, asks why a rookie wants to join his team, but Kim says he doesn't know. He just came to work and was sent to that team. Servo grabs him by the collar, asking if he looks like a liar and where the determination is in his eyes. He warns not to beg for mercy after mutating, and if he sees any sign of a mutant in him, he'll kill him on the spot. Kim says he'll keep that in mind, while thinking the guy was just trying to scare a newbie and that it's always the same as in real life, wondering why there was an R-rank character there since that look was before awakening and they still looked normal. Another man approaches, asking Servo not to treat the rookie like that, since they already had few people and that man had 5 years of experience in dungeon cleansing. Servo questions if he really looked like he'd be helpful, thinking it's strange that he hasn't mutated yet, but he walks away while saying he has exactly 4 days to cleanse this contaminated place. Junsu reflects that he was even more annoying here than in the game. However, the long-haired guy taps his shoulder and tells him not to worry since the deer can be a bit harsh sometimes, but he's actually a nice guy. Kim finally admits that he understood. They arrive at gate covered in slime. Then they say it's disgusting and they'll never get used to it. Deer shouts that he'll open the doors and tells everyone to get ready. He presses the access button. That's how they enter the contaminated mana zone. The leader yells for everyone to hold their positions. The traces of contaminated mana crawl through the basement. Those are low-level monsters, contaminated slimes. Junsu reflects that the basis of the mana purification process in monsters are the contaminated slimes. Since even though they're weak in combat, the reason they're hard to deal with is that even hitting them with a shovel, the slime splits in two and flies off because they don't die unless you hit their mana core. The group members shout for each other to find the mana core because they'll be contaminated if this keeps up, but Kim quickly runs toward one of the slimes, yelling for his teammate to back off a little. And so he gets ready to attack with the shovel since he wouldn't take responsibility for the damage and strikes the contaminated slime, hitting a golden piece inside. The slime begins to dissolve and the man shouts. Kim comments with a smile that this was perfect because now he was just starting to warm up, rising up from the ground with aggressive moves. The warrior charges through all the contaminated slimes in his path, slicing them and finding their mana corors, repeating a process until there's none left. One of the group members wonders what that was because he was defeating the slimes with a single strike. Wanted to know how that was possible as Kim heads toward the giant slime. Kim thinks it was totally possible. 2 days before the incident, he was lying on the ground and wonders where he was because there should have been something around there, but he notices something strange in front of him, picking up a coin and saying he found it. That's how he acquired the treasure hunter trait. Kim is happy and says that this was the most important trait for warrior Kim and celebrates having found 5001. While people in the plaza think he's weird before the dungeon, Kim learned important things and acquired traits. He throws up in a trash can, expelling all the impurities inside, while screaming, and gains the contamination resistance trait. Kim comments that that one was tough, but acquiring traits here was just like in the game. He only needed to meet the right conditions. And he admires all the traits he earned through hard work. You could have a total of 6 traits, and switch them out whenever you wanted. The treasure hunter ability lets you find an opponent's weak point. And thanks to that trait, he can locate the mana core, dissolving the giant contaminated slime, forming a skull as it dissolves. Deer yells for everyone to be careful not to get hit. Kim is covered in contaminated gunk and says it was all worth it since this warrior Kim ability was incredible, giving him resistance to contaminated mana. A bus drives through the city. Kim reflects that even with the help of traits, working all day is exhausting. Hedgehog shows up and comments that thanks to the warrior, everyone was leaving earlier. And just seeing that was amazing. He asks if Kim is expecting to awaken like Deer did. And Kim says he just knows how to use a shovel since he served in the military. His colleague says he really is amazing. Kim reflects that the mutation symptoms on that guy were getting worse, and it seemed like he had been exposed to a lot of contaminated mana. So he suggests the guy take the day off tomorrow since he didn't look well. But Hedgehog replies that he'd rather become a mutant than stay in death. Kim thinks that makes sense since there aren't many reasons for someone to take this kind of job. He drives his shovel into the ground. For days later, Kim sighed because it was finally over, but it seemed like everyone was exhausted from this job. Someone throws up on the floor suddenly. Hedgehog drops to his knees talking about his head. Kim just thinks that he told him not to push past his limit, but Deer walks over saying that he looks ready for the next one. But it's like that because he's still too new and says he never thought Kim would finish his contract, congratulating him for the good work. Kim jokes that he only managed it thanks to him, while thinking that actually it was thanks to the traits he got as a cleaner. So the job will be way too easy from now on. And it seemed like he was used to it too, wondering if he really was in a rank, while Servo mumbled out of exhaustion. But then they hear a scream, and Kim turns around. Hedgehog starts getting consumed by contaminated energy. His friends ask if he's okay because of the spikes. Meanwhile, Servo rushes in asking what the hell that was. Kim thinks it can't be happening. The team leader tells Hedgehog to hang in there because they're getting out of there. But he had already mutated, causing an explosion in the contaminated area. Kim thinks it's impossible. Hedgehog's body had already transformed. He became gigantic in front of the warrior. He had turned into a mutant. Hedgehog was now in his mutant form. He seemed to have lost all sanity, and if they tried to defeat him, everyone there would die. Since all the new traits Kim had gained were made for dungeon cleansing, they wouldn't help him now. No matter how much he thought about what to do, he kept coming back to the conclusion that it was impossible. Hedgehog prepares to attack. He throws Kim far away, slamming him on the ground back first. Kim reflects that the power difference is too great, and at this rate, he could die. But then he obtains the trait endurance. Kim realizes this is exactly what he needed. It's too soon to give up, and he asks himself how he's going to survive this monster. First, he needs to erase some traits. Strength will prove useful now, and Mana Heart will help control his mana, with endurance reducing all damage taken. Mana absorption lets him absorb mana, and deep breathing grants faster regeneration, and finally the last piece, corruption resistance. Kim finally gets the basics ready for battle. Hedgehog charges at him again. Kim embusts his shovel with green energy with the strength trait, boosting his power tenfold. The warrior launches Hedgehog into the air with a strike. It was good. It was working, and he knew he could do it. Hedgehog crashes into a wall, but then suddenly curls into a ball. Kim gets startled by this. Hedgehog spins at him, using a rock to leap from the ground, preparing to hit Kim's head. The boy begs for the love of God as he's struck by Hedgehog. The creature pulls back, its claw dug into the ground, grinding its teeth at Kim, and the boy jumps off the ground with a leap, complaining that even with endurance activated, it still hurts like hell. But if he stops now, he'll lose his life. So, he has no choice but to keep attacking. One of Hedgehog's spikes bends, flying straight at Kim's face and launching more at the warrior. Kim crashes to the ground, wounded, thinking he just had to hold on a bit longer. He just needed a little more, aiming to land a punch on Hedgehog, but blood flies again from behind him. Kim is completely torn up because of the spikes. Hedgehog rages once more, launching a spike that splits Kim's fingers apart. The boy screams, lying on the ground, saying that just as expected, he can't beat Warrior Kim. Hedgehog slams the ground again. Playing Arcane Souls, Junsu had been surrounded in the game. He used to tell everyone to rush in, claiming he'd win with just Warrior Kim. And back when he played the game, it was all easy. Since it only took a single click to hunt monsters, he never thought about how the character would feel. He would just put his characters through extreme situations under the excuse of efficient training. But now he knew everything because he'd endured so much suffering just to obtain a mediocre trait, landing a hit on Hedgehog and throwing him far with that strike, because there was no better way. With the activated trait called Mutant Muscle, meant to win without paying any price. Hedgehog crashes to the ground on his back. Kim realizes the reason he attacked recklessly was because of the obtainable trait that comes when surpassing the limits of mana, heart, and strength. Activating Mutant Muscle, and everything had led to this moment. Kim uses his mutated arm to block Hedgehog's blow, saying he doesn't feel pain anymore and dares Hedgehog to hit him again. But the creature covers its fist and spikes, striking Kim in the stomach with it. The boy wonders if Hedgehog hasn't even used his full strength yet. Now with his stomach completely corrupted, it begins to form something strange. Kim gains the trait Mutant Body, becoming gigantic as well. He thanks him, saying he's stronger now because of him. Hedgehog charges at the boy, and now that they're on the same level, the two clash with brute force. Deer watches from a distance and wonders what's going on because it's so loud. He sees Kim and Hedgehog trading blows equally. He's surprised by Warrior Kim's presence, wondering if he's a superhuman or something to be able to fight evenly against a mutant. Kim is thrown back, and so is Hedgehog. Both fall onto their backs on the ground. The warrior thinks it wasn't that easy since his size had become similar to that monster's. But at this rate, he'd be at a disadvantage. But the creature gets up and roars while Kim thinks he has no choice at this point. Activating the contamination resistance trait. He says he has to believe in himself and tells himself to black out. Deer is shocked as he watches the scene. Kim's hand begins to deform. His face turns monstrous, unlike his normal appearance, becoming a mutant monster. Kim is ready to battle Hedgehog, but a circle forms above his head. He then releases a spell against the mutant, gradually erasing Hedgehog with the attack. He's thrown into a structure. Deer wonders what that was, and if Kim was a monster because he became a mutant while fighting another one, and wants to know how that was possible. As Kim acquires the mutant trait, he asks what the hell that was, but decides he needs to get out of there. Kim's shadow blocks Deer's vision. Then he stretches his hand toward the leader. Deer just closes his eyes, but realizes nothing happened. Kim sighs a little, and Deer wonders how he turned back into a human. Then the warrior falls to the ground, breathing heavily, saying he did it. If he's holding the mutant form and mutant muscles and deletes the corruption resistance trait, he'll receive the mutant trait. And it's a common belief that once you become a mutant, you can't return to normal. But he knew he could do it, because you can change traits as long as you can think rationally, even just a little. That's how he endured the transformation and managed to switch mutant with corruption resistance. The stadium was completely destroyed. Kim was dizzy after the battle, and it felt like all his bones and muscles were shifting inside his body. He never wants to go through that again. However, he gets up right after. In Hedgehog's mouth is a purple sphere, and Kim grabs it with his hand. Having obtained a level 1 mana core, he thinks it was all worth it. He's grateful for getting a level 1 mana core, because this cleanup job was definitely profitable. While Deer asks if the guy is okay, since he became a mutant back there, and wants to know what happened, Kim says it'll be annoying if weird rumors start about him. So, he says he took a risk, betting he could return to normal, and got really lucky. Deer is surprised to hear it was luck, and says that was really strange. But Kim hands him some mana cores, saying they're heading back now, and he wants to get some fresh air, while the others thank him for the level 0 mana cores. The warrior reflects that he saved their lives, and even gave out a few mana cores, so they'll keep a secret. Deer stays quiet watching Kim, and in the Shinsa Force's office. He thanks Kim for going through such a hard time, and says it must have been terrible. Kim confirms it was tough work in the end, but wonders why he's buttering him up. Shin Su comments that if he had said he was a superhuman, he would have given him a proper job instead of cleaning one. The warrior thinks that he believed he was a superhuman. In Arcane Su, a superhuman awakens a skill that allows them to wield powerful mana. And in a world where strength is authority, superhumans are nobility. It made sense that he thought that since you'd need to be a superhum to defeat mutants, even though he only managed it because of his traits, and Cien Su says he should be paid for the cleanup. Kim says that it'd be nice, thinking he'll let him believe he's a superhuman for now. The agency leader says he cleaned 5 areas, and they normally take 20% in fees from the 50 million won total. And when split among the team, that's 5 million, but this time he's doing it a bit differently. He'll only take 5% in fees from Kim's portion and give him a bonus. Kim is happy to receive 12 million. And Sansu comments that he's happy to work with him, while the guy thinks it's cool being a superhuman. Leaving the room, he wonders how he's going to spend all that money. He runs into a bald man who says the warrior seems to be in a good mood because he must have gotten a good payment. Kim confirms, saying they worked well, and reflects that this was one of the people he worked with last time. The man then mentions the reason he's there. It's to ask for a favor. His wife is sick, and he wonders if the warrior could lend him some money. He apologizes for asking this kind of favor since they only worked together once. And Kim reflects that helping others in this world is a bad idea because they could betray you at any moment and it's hard enough just to survive. Kim grabs the man's hand and tells him not to do that. He's older than him after all. And even if it's not much, he should use this, handing him level 0 mana cores because he feels bad ignoring him. Later that night, in a dark alley, the man shouts that Kim was an idiot since he only pretended to be a poor old man and ended up getting all that stuff. Servo wonders if he's new to this kind of thing, and the man bets that if he'd mentioned a sick child, Kim would have given even more. Still, it pissed him off that they were paying more to him than to actual workers since Kim gave him money along with some of his own share to that fake superhuman. Servo sigh, saying he's not even a real superhuman, and that it's a good time to teach him a lesson. The old man asks if he has a good idea, and the leader asks if he doesn't see it already as an evil smile forms on his face because that idiot must have some weird kind of ability. He says they already know his secret, and they're going to teach him a lesson, squeezing out all of his level 0 cores because they're going to show him just how terrifying this world can be. In a massive, luxurious building, Kim comments that money is definitely a great thing, and he never thought he'd live to see the day he'd get a massage in a place like that. This game was better than real life, but the master presses on his arm. Kim reflects that he spent 3 full days resting in the hotel, but still feels pain, and from now on, he'll have to think twice before using mutant mode. Changing traits isn't as omnipotent as he thought, and his body changes depending on the traits he uses, and the severity of side effects increases the more his body changes. The problem is figuring out how to survive while limiting trait usage. He notices something strange through the window, wondering if it's the Iron Fist gang since they're still walking around with that arrogant attitude. Arcane Su is ruled by local gangs, not by law. It makes sense considering how many monsters are out there and how people rely on superhumans. And while he at least survived the first phase, it would be foolish to rely only on traits in a world this dangerous. So, he puts a smile on his face, saying everything comes down to items. He heads to the item shop in Seoul. A woman asks if he's there to sell something, and he confirms he's got some monster byproducts. She looks down and says she should warn him first. They don't buy level 0 cores. Kim says he already knew that, and that he wants to sell something else, leaving the girl surprised when she sees the core. She asks if it's a level 2 mana core, and Kim confirms, asking her to take a look. He thinks it's nice seeing her surprised, and that the effort he put in at the hotel room paid off. He fused everything he had, and thank God he managed to create a level 2 mana core. Its price changes depending on the level. So if you want to sell it at the highest value, this is how it has to be. The girl pays him 4.77 million won for the core, and Kim thank her asking if by chance they sell weapons or armor there, and the woman confirms asking him to follow her. Kim walks through the storage door, smiling, as he enters, saying it looks like they have everything there. While thinking they're all basic items he used in the game, the girl tells him to make himself at home. And Kim reflects that it's time for him to gear up, stuffing several weapons into his backpack and walking out into the street, saying that now it finally feels like he's playing Arcane Soul. A female voice politely stops Kim, asking if he's a mercenary because she needs help. Kim says no and tells her to look for someone else, but the girl hands him money and says she's and Sue on a business trip, but the Iron Fist gang is terrifying, wanting to know if he could escort her to her apartment. And Kim reflects that 500,000 for a bodyguard sounds like a daily quest, so maybe he should accept it. Touching her shoulder, he says he can't just ignore a woman in danger. Pointing forward and asking if they should go already, they walk up a back alley on the outskirts. The girl says they're almost there. Kim reflects that the place feels really strange since there aren't even ants on the ground or a single person around. The girl enters a narrow alley and says it's down that street. Worried, Kim turns his face to look, seeing the girl in the darkness, saying they're almost there. The warrior comments that it's too dark and that he can't see very well. He unexpectedly acquires the night vision trait. He notices a weapon in the dark. The girl is ready to shoot him and says the mercenary was more cautious than she expected. Kim wonders why she has a gun and if this woman had planned an ambush for him. But Deer stops him from escaping, asking where his junior was trying to run off to, and says it's good to see him again in a situation like this. Kim questions what he did to deserve this. Deer says he didn't do anything, but he was dumb enough and there's no other reason. Kim tries to run in the opposite direction, and the leader asks how he starts a conversation and then runs off like that, telling them to shoot at the warrior. The bullet hits Kim in the back. He falls down a staircase. Deer complains that she was supposed to shoot his legs, not his back. The girl says it was better than letting him escape, and the leader assumes he lost his life. He had turned back into a human after becoming a mutant, and he was sure some mage would buy the corpse. A companion says he'll take the bag and equipment for now. Deer says it can't be helped, and they'll take care of that first, but the body was no longer there, and he wonders where it went. A skylight shatters above them, striking one of Deer's partners in the neck. They ask what the hell that was, and Deer wants to know if Kim is still alive. The guy tells him to bet on it, because he wasn't going to lose his life to someone who repays kindness with betrayal. He had left the armor shop already wearing a bulletproof vest, and thanks to that, he gained the trait he needed called Plain Dead. Deer yells that Kim broke the streetlight, and now he can't see anything. But Kim was already behind him and asks if he was looking for him because he saved his life and now he's going to take it, insulting the leader of the group. He punches the man in the face, throwing him to the ground. Deer tries to get up, but ends up sitting on the floor. He tries to kick Kim, but the guy just dodges, saying that Deer should have been grateful for being saved and taking the life of your savior isn't the right thing to do. Then punches him in the face again. Kim gets ready to stomp on his face, but the girl fires a shot before that can happen. Asking if Deer is okay, Kim looks at his wounded arm and thinks he was too careless. Because in Arcane Soul, the scariest things aren't the monsters or mutants, but the people. He was naive and trusted people too easily, and he won't make that mistake again. Drawing a gun, he shoots the girl's hand, knocking her weapon far away, hitting the shoulder of another group member, and says it's already over. Kim fires again into the wall, saying he should take Deer's life just as a precaution, and the man tries to kick him. The warrior didn't expect the move, so he barely dodges and loses possession of his gun. Deer's legs finally transformed. He just underwent a superhuman awakening at that moment, and they did a terrible job balancing this game. Superhuman awakening is something all playable characters are capable of. It's considered a basic progression system in the game. According to the world within Arcane Sue, a level 1 superhuman is strong enough to threaten a civilian carrying a rifle. In other words, he has to deal with a superhuman using nothing but his body. Deer slips out of Kim's line of sight, and the guy wonders where he went. The awakened man was using his skills. Deer's abilities are stereoscopic movement and kick. The stereoscopic movement power allows the user to take advantage of the incredible elasticity of his leg to move freely. Kim notices that he used his stereoscopic movement to scale the building wall. Servo shouts that he's going to send the warrior to hell, and Kim needs to dodge it. The warrior rolls away, trying to evade the strike. Then the awakened one asks how he managed to dodge it. Emerging from the ground again, heading toward the boy, he shouts that he won't escape this time. With a smile on his face, Kim says he has no intention of dodging, using an expandable bite-un to block the leg, and calls him an animal, thinking that purchase was a good idea. A few hours earlier in the armory, he wondered if buying a weapon was worth it. But since Warrior Kim is a warrior-class character, even if he got stronger, there's a limit to how well he can handle a weapon. And just in case he decides to buy a weapon for the warrior class as well. Picking up the baton in his hand. Each character has weapons and traits that are more effective for their class. That's why to defeat Servo, he extends the baton again because he needs to use a close-range weapon and the proper traits for a warrior. Kim attacks vertically, landing a blow on Servo's shoulder and obtains the attack trait. His first class-specific trait was the warrior class trait, attack, and now he charges forward using a downward slash, an upward strike, and a thrust. Finally finishing his combo with a horizontal slash. Servo looks to the side as he dodges, trying a high kick aimed at Kim's head. Kim wonders how to dodge this opening since he can't stop now after coming this far. So, even if he breaks a bone, he'll keep attacking, striking Servo's thigh. The kick hits Kim's forearm, and the bite uninjures the awakened one's thigh. An Aurora surrounds the weapon once again as the warrior acquires the trait known as combo, the best trait for the warrior class in the early stages, using attack and combo to strike Servo. The awakened one begs him to stop, but Kim lands the final blow on his stomach, leaving Servo unconscious on the ground. As the rain falls, Kim gives thanks for defeating the awakened Servo. His hand turned a little red. He wonders what that strange sensation is, because his entire body aches, and even so, something is overflowing inside him. Wondering what it could be, an explosion erupts at the location. The day he discovered the harsh truth of Arcane Soul, awakening as a superhuman and level 1 warrior, Kim, he opens his hand surrounded by aura, closes it, and thinks that he's now a superhuman. Then Kim happily shouts about his new condition because he'll now start receiving offers for high-paying mercenary jobs and even loans with low interest. A man with a cigar asks if he did it. Kim turns around to see a large man standing before him. This is Iron Fist Kim, the second basic character given an Arcane Soul after Warrior Kim, a reinforced soldier with a prosthetic arm who specializes in firearms and precision shots. But the problem is he's the leader of the Iron Fist gang. Kim says he fought inside their territory and probably stirred up trouble. The soldier asks if by any chance he even knew where he was before causing the mess, and the boy replies that he was attacked and couldn't afford to die there. The gang leader is Gun and asks if they think they're scarier than the Iron Fist gang. Kim realizes that if he keeps fighting, he'll lose his life for nothing. But the soldier places the gun to his chest and tells him he made a terrible choice because he's about to find out what happens when you mess up their turf. Kim glares at him fiercely, asking if that's so, and says he overlooked one thing, grabbing the weapon in his hand and stating that he's not the type to lose his life so easily. Pulling the trigger, the soldier reflects that he fired the gun himself. Kim wonders what that was as he stands up because it only tickled, and now he's healing thanks to the regeneration trait. The soldier jokes that he's got quite an interesting ability. Kim asks if it's the evolved version of the wound recovery trait known as regeneration, a trait obtainable once you become a superhuman, and it'll all be over once they underestimate him, because he's going with a bluffing tactic, saying he didn't survive out of luck. And no matter who it is, if they mess with Warrior Kim, they better be ready. The soldier repeats his name, and says he liked his courage, saying he'll let it go this time, but that he owes him now. He taps Kim on the shoulder, and tells him to understand what that means. The warrior says he'll remember that, and wonders if the soldier recognized him. Then the gang leader extends his hand, asking to work together next time. Kim reflects that Iron Fist isn't the type to lie, and building a connection here wouldn't be a bad move, saying that it sounds like a good decision. He shakes the man's iron hand, saying they'll meet again. At the Jam Cell Tower of Superhumans, Kim says he had no idea it would be like this when he saw the game, but it was a spectacle and completely different from his hometown. A girl thanks him for visiting the Superhuman Tower, asking if she can help, while Kim finds her beautiful, wondering if she's an NPC. While the girl says that if he's there for certification, he should go to the machine over there to measure his mana and trait circuit. And Kim thanks her, thinking that he didn't even ask, and yet she guided him because that's how much he looks like a newbie. And once he gets that certificate, he'll finally start his real life. Something strange happens and pulls Kim. As people bring their hands together and say that the saint is there, Kim thinks this was a unique airship with a rune taking over the floor of the building. That was the order of the Old Father, and he wonders why there's a boss here because he's still in the tutorial timeline, and she's a saint instead of a boss while people pray to her. As the story progresses, it's revealed that the order is actually a cult disguised as a religion, and they begin attacking civilians indiscriminately. People wonder if the saint is there for a mana test, because she probably wants to renew her level. An aura surrounds the saint as she smiles up at the sky. Kim says it looked like a noisy mana scan. The circuits turn yellow. The aura begins to fade. Looking toward the sky, the saint continues to smile. The citizens pray anxiously. The saint is in the priest class with mana level 8 and a 6-layer circuit. Whispers continue about the saint's traits and their 6 abilities while Kim reflects that this wasn't the time to be hoping for things. A level 8 superhuman can be compared to an aircraft carrier squadron. Basically, a walking national level superpower with enough strength to wipe out Sue in the future. But even if he said that now, they'd think he was crazy and throw stones at him. For now, he'll measure his mana, and drawing too much attention as a newbie with 6 abilities wouldn't be ideal, so he'll lower it to 3. The saint suddenly looks to the side. Her subordinates ask what's wrong, and she says Kim is unusual, approaching him and saying that he has a rather intriguing ability. Kim is startled and backs away from the saint, asking what the boss just said because she just sensed that he switched his traits. Kim had equipped abilities, and a soldier asks why the saint would even speak to him. He looks like a regular human. The saint grabs Kim's hand, asking if she can know his name, and the guy introduces himself as Warrior Kim, thinking that the only reason a priestess would ask someone's name in Arcane Soul. The saint says she's representing the order of the Old Father to baptize him, because the Old Father Lord of the Black Gold Throne always desires rare powers like his asking him to submit and find peace in this hellish world. People around say are jealous that he's being baptized by the Old Father's first daughter personally. Kim curses the whole situation because if he's baptized and receives the baptism trait, he'll have no choice but to become a paladin of the order. However, the Order of the Old Father loses the war against South Korea to major figures of Arcane Soul. He strengthens his grip, pulling away from the saint as he thinks he doesn't want to be forced into betting everything on a cause doomed to be wiped out. The citizens continue circling. Kim says he refuses to be baptized, leaving the saint stunned, saying she must have misheard him. The warrior denies it because he's serious. The saint says he is free to serve or to refuse to serve. However, the Old Father already set his eyes on him. She places her hand on his shoulder and asks him not to forget that a sacred seed has already taken root inside him. And if you can't overcome this small seed, your fragile free will have no meaning at all. Kim was burning while kneeling. The residents wondered how a newbie dared to refuse a baptism and felt sorry for him. Kim was suffering from divine fever, where he'd endure infinite pain as punishment, and he thought he was prepared for it, but it still hurt like he was on fire. Divine Fever is one of the strongest debuffs in Arcane Soul, and by causing endless burning pain, it prevents a person from living their life. And the only way out is through baptism. He refused it because he thought about the future, but it seemed like he was about to lose his life right there. His eyes rolling back as he begins to lose consciousness. Water is splashed onto his face. Kim wonders who it was. It was the girl who had guided him earlier, asking if he was okay. No one helps anyone during Divine Fever because of fear the negativity might spread to them, but he was grateful. So, he decides to endure just a little longer. Kim acquires the Divine Endurance trait, extinguishing the flames little by little, thinking he didn't refuse the baptism without considering the consequences. Aura expands in his imagination. The first condition is acquiring Divine Endurance, and now he needs to gather more mana inside him, equipping this trait onto his body. The girl continues to pour water on him. Kim reflects that it feels like the water of life in this painful moment, and he needs to focus on this contrasting sensation. Fire and water concentrate at his core. The burning pain and cold reason using the mana within him to extinguish the flame, releasing all the energy from the Divine Fever. A strong wind blows the guide away. Kim acquires the Mana Barrier trait, and thinks that he obtained the trait a defensive warrior should have called Mana Barrier. The guide asks if he's okay, and Kim nods, saying it's all thanks to her. The residents wonder how he overcame Divine Fever without being baptized. Kim reflects that he didn't fully overcome it. It was just a temporary measure using the barrier, but at least he was free from the burning pain. The black flame was kind of cool, saying it's time to measure his mana. The bar begins to charge, and the scan is completed, revealing Warrior Kim with mana level 1 and a 6-layer circuit. People comment that he's a super rookie, and that's why the Saint wanted him. But the warrior thinks he drew too much attention, and his goal was to get strong quietly. The guy congratulates him, saying she's never seen anyone with a 6-layer circuit from the beginning, and asks if he'd like to go issue his superhuman license. Still at the superhuman tower, the girl hands him the license, congratulating him for officially becoming a certified superhuman. Kim reflects that he worked hard to achieve this. The girl offers to explain all the level 1 special privileges, but the warrior declines. He already knows everything. With reduced fees, the right to carry weapons, and as he levels up, he'll gain exemption from taxes, immunity from imprisonment, and access to all transport and benefits. The guide comments that he knows quite a lot, while Kim says he's a PhD in supermanology and that he doesn't like to waste too much time, asking if there's a way to leave quietly without the crowd outside. The girl agrees, saying she already prepared something. Kim is surprised by her reaction as she tells him not to worry and to follow her. The warrior thanks her for taking such good care of him, even giving him a stealth cloak and showing a secret passage. And the guide says it's no problem to help others. Kim acquires the stealth trait and thinks he got a skill for free. The guide points ahead and says he can exit that way. She can only bring him this far due to the rules. The warrior thanks her, saying it's more than enough. And the girl says it's no trouble. Kim reflects that he didn't know someone so kind could exist in Arcane Soul. She's beautiful, too, and once he's strong, he'll return the favor. Wondering what her name is since he has the business card. Kim is completely shocked when he reads the name because it says Back Saren. She's one of the 3 strongest characters in the game. A berserker who always had a terrifying appearance. He thought it was strange that her face seemed familiar. Someone who always had such a fearsome look in the game, so much that he couldn't even imagine it. To think Back Saren was someone so kind. He wants to know what the hell happened to her. Kim slices through the last slime of his mission. He thinks that being a superhuman is awful. He had been clearing out this monster cave nonstop for a week and was completely exhausted. Sitting down on the floor, he says he finally finished the cave and he's already this tired because the efficiency was terrible. All of it was because he had to focus his traits on maintaining the mana barrier. If he could customize them just to clean the cave, he would have finished hours ago, but he couldn't do any other work because of that cursed debuff. So, he needs a potion called Nectar to eliminate the Divine Fever. But it's so expensive that this cleaning job won't cover the cost. Kim's phone vibrates in his pocket. He wonders how many times Director Choi is going to call. It's so annoying and says he's had enough of him, but he gives up on ending the call since he just got a great idea. He heads to the shoe agency. The director says that someone who overcame the Divine Fever without being baptized and the man who started with a 6-layer circuit is an honor to meet. Kim agrees, saying things just ended up that way. They ask if he found the job he requested, and Choi complains because it's really difficult to do that as Nectar is a medicine that can only be acquired through quests from level 5 superhumans or higher. Kim complains that if he can't get it, he'll just leave. But the director begs him not to do that because it involves his contract, and it's clear he'll manage. While reflecting, since it's director Choi, he knew he'd find a quest with nectar as a reward and asks what the mission is about. The director places a tablet on the table and asks if he's heard of Number One Security. Kim says it's the first time he's heard of them, and that it sounds like a security company. Choi explains it's a private military company and one of the biggest in the industry, where the president and vice president are a couple both from traditional martial arts families. The warrior comments that for a rich family to post a request like this, it must be something serious. Choi responds that their son is the issue. He's already over 20, but still hasn't awakened as a superhuman. Kim asks if that's even possible when both parents are martial artists, and the director explains that he's accumulated level 8 mana, but still hasn't awakened. The director explains that their condition is that it has to be a level 1 or higher warrior type superhuman, so it should be a perfect fit for Kim. The warrior smiles, saying he'll go take a look then at a very bright and beautiful mansion. Choi swings his legs, saying the president and vice president are usually very busy and not the type to run late. Kim reflects that it's clearly a very expensive house, but a woman enters and apologizes for keeping them waiting so long since they're the clients, Seo Jungju and Lee Miri Choi Bose, saying it was nothing and thanking them for their time. Kim does the same, thinking they must be at least level 6 superhumans, because both have a considerable amount of mana. Jungju complains that you can tell he's weak just by looking at him, and Mary asks him not to speak like that, saying her husband should go back to his room. The man sits down grumbling, but the woman asks both of them to take a seat as well, because since they came all this way, they must be considering accepting the request. Kim says he'd first like to check on her son's condition and see if there's any specific reason preventing his awakening. Jungju slams his hand on the table, asking if he really thought he'd tell something like that to a rookie. Miri asks him not to act that way since he's on edge because it's about their son and it's not something they can tell an outsider. If he accepts the request, they'll call their son and explain the situation because she's sure he must be really in need of nectar. Kim reflects that there's a problem with their son that must be kept confidential and they know exactly what he needs. So, he's more and more convinced, saying he'll accept the request and they should call their son. The door to the room opens. The boy introduces himself as Su Woojin. Kim stands and says it's a pleasure to meet him, thinking he can't sense any mana coming from him. The warrior notices something different below, saying that he has some pretty cool gloves, and the boy agrees, saying they're more than he deserves, so he wears them gratefully. Kim comments that he figured as much since he'd need a very strong mana seal, surprising the family. The warrior smiles, saying he was certain the moment he saw the gloves, and even though it's a critical secret of a noble family, they chose to request a level 1 warrior type superhuman, and he used the nectar as bait to bring him there. Because Mr. Woojuan had also been baptized by the order of the old priest, and the reason he wasn't able to awaken was because he rejected the baptism and sealed his mana to avoid divine fever since he couldn't make that public he had been suffering. He must have heard the rumor about a level 1 superhuman who overcame divine fever, so he decided to seek him out. Wynn is completely stunned by his insight, saying it's amazing he doesn't need to explain anything else, and almost thought Kim was the protagonist of a detective series. Kim just comments that it's a matter of reading while reflecting that there's nothing to fear when you know the future. The moment he saw the photo, he already understood because in the future, Shu Jin becomes the paladin of the vanguard of the order of the old priest. He refused baptism and held on, but his parents lost their powers, and then he gave in and joined the order of the old priest. Janju approaches, calling Kim, "Sir," and asks if there's any way for his Wujuan to escape baptism. The warrior reflects that he was super arrogant a moment ago, and now he's acting all polite. So, he confirms that there's a solution. He thinks about how he played Arcane Su for 10,000 hours and obviously knows how to escape. Placing a hand on the boy's shoulder and saying he understands the pain because he suffered too. So, he should trust him because he'll get him out of this. Wu Jun starts crying, calling Kim sir. The warrior thinks he doesn't care she's a saint. She dared to try baptizing him into such a disgusting cult. And now his future subordinate was at his side. Kim pulls away from the hug with a smile, saying that before starting treatment, he'd like to add a condition, and his parents ask about it. But the mother says she understands since it's no longer just about awakening, but about overcoming divine fever, and if he can cure Wujin. Kim requests, as an additional condition, he'd like them to teach him the mountain-crushing swordsmanship. The warrior keeps smiling while Director Choi looks uneasy. Mary approaches the boy, asking if he fully understands what he just said. Kim is startled by her aura, wondering what that murderous intent is because the vice president was way scarier than the president right now. And he gets that she'd be angry, but mountain-crushing swordsmanship. People may doubt the decision to learn swordsmanship in the information era of the 21st century. But power is authority, slicing through a tank with just a sword. as superhuman swordsmanship can easily destroy an entire tank. How martial artists are replaced by squadrons of fighter jets worth trillions of won. If a level 1 superhuman learns and continuously trains in mountain-crushing swordsmanship, they can reach level 4 effortlessly. It's basically cheating. He remembers that only elites are allowed to learn that swordsmanship, wondering if he crossed the line, and Kim agrees, but only if he completes the mission. Woo Jun calls out to his mother, causing her murderous intent to fade. She finally accepts that it's okay, because if he succeeds, she'll give him a memory chip containing mountain-crushing swordsmanship along with the nectar, leaving Kim stunned. He thanks her, thinking he really believed Mara was going to kill him, and now he got the sword technique too. Mary says, however, if he fails, she and her husband will be disappointed and angry. Kim assures her that won't happen and says it's better to start as soon as possible. They head to a room with a mana-focused circle and 200 intermediate-grade mana potions. Muri says she prepared everything he asked for, and Kim agrees it should be enough, and he prefers to be alone with the patient during the treatment. The woman apologizes for what happened earlier because her Woojuan was baptized by force before entering school and never had the chance to make friends, let alone go on a family picnic. He had to suffer, unable to leave his room under any circumstances. It seems they became overly sensitive about the cause of the situation, and from now on, she will leave everything completely in his hand. Kim reflects that everyone in their family had to suffer because of the saint's trap. Win thanks his mother, saying he's okay, and the warrior thinks that in the game, he ends up turning against his family and becomes cold in the future. He kind of feels bad for them, so he reassures the lady, saying he'll make it work no matter what. Alone Kim says they're going to start now, and Woo Jun asks what he has to do. The warrior asks why he's shaking and tells him to calm down, but the boy assumes he's going to torture him, using injections and shocks to awaken his power. Kim asks what kind of treatment they've done to him so far, and the boy thinks that the general treatment to cure divine fever is to drink nectar after awakening. But Woo Jun has too much mana in his body, and the fever was severe for him. But the warrior kneels and says there's no need to worry because everything seen during training must be kept secret, and the boy promises. So they begin, and first Kim has to expand the mana barrier to its absolute limit. Then the barrier starts to weaken, and the warrior complains about the heat, but he uncaps the potions in his hand. He drinks while Win tries to call for help. Kim simply tosses the potions behind him, opening 2 more for himself to drink, thinking it was a horrible deal. Already having drunk several vials, he obtains the trait medicine addiction, where received damage and mana consumption increase. But the effects of medicines are abnormally enhanced, and he thinks about his focus on mana. Using area darkness, which creates a shield over a designated area, Kim wipes his mouth, saying the divine fever has been completely pushed out of the barrier. Woo Jun yells that it's too much, and the warrior says it's way too early to celebrate, because he'll have to remove his mana-sealing glove and stick his hand outside the barrier, since he's going to have to grab his hand. Woo Jun says the 2 divine fevers will start a resonance reaction. Kim steps out of the designated barrier and says his fever will be manageable since it's within the barrier and not to ask why. Just follow his orders. Woo Jun thinks this is the first time he's removing the glove. Slowly pulling it off his hand, that's when the resonance begins. Kim wonders how much mana he has inside his body and says it's terrifying, but he has to grab his hand, sensing something frightening in his divine fever. Kim thinks it hurts a lot more than when the saint baptized him. It felt like his bones were being shattered, and he has to maintain focus to endure the pain and thinks it doesn't matter if it's the saint or the divine fever. Then he jumps toward the barrier, falling on top of Woo Jun. Kim is completely out of breath, holding Win's wrist, and says it was a success. He's acquired the damage absorption trait, where the user can absorb damage from others. Woo Jun mentions that he removed the glove, and it was tolerable. Kim smiles because that's why they had to go through all of that. Beyond the barrier, he used damage absorption to take part of Win's divine fever, meaning Woo Jun's fever was weakened. Then he says this is the final stage as he draws his sword, asking Win not to stop and to keep attacking until he awakens. The boy agrees because it's time to use the swordsmanship he trained with all his life. Then he assumes a different stance, attacking Kim's arms. He moves behind the warrior, saying he broke an iron gauntlet with a wooden sword and acquired the trait Protect. But even with that trait, he'll be in critical condition if he takes another hit like that. And it's absurd to think Woo Jun hasn't even awakened yet. The monster sword approaches, and Kim wonders what kind of swordsmanship she taught that boy, because he's having trouble dodging his strikes. He collapses to his knees on the ground, gaining a trait called evasion. Kim makes a decision because he's about to awaken. Woo Jun's mana is gathering. Kim wonders how the sword and SCO are glowing the same color. He's at SSR rank, being called one with the sword. Kim thinks he's reached a state where the sword becomes a person. It's an insanely overpowered trait for a warrior class. But this guy is really strange because he's in a complete trance. Kim would lose his life if he got hit. First, he has to use every defensive trait possible and focus the barriers on both his arms with the help of the mana focus circle in this room. He combines 2 skills to block the attack and is thrown far away because of it. A shield forms on the ground. Kim acquires the mana shield trait, combining the traits mana barrier and protect to create the mana shield. Woo-Jun being one with the sword almost cost him his life, and the boy lets out a faint groan. Kim is shocked by this. Seo's eyes return to normal, and he collapses to the side on the floor. Kim asks how he dared to lose consciousness so peacefully after nearly taking his life. Noticing the boy was nearly asleep on the floor, and he had lost control a bit after awakening. In the game, Woo-Jun was a powerful SSR rank character, but since he awakened as a warrior instead of a paladin, he gained sword-related abilities as his starting trait. Maybe he had created a monstrous warrior by awakening Woo-Jun as a warrior instead of a paladin. And he doesn't know how that will affect the story in the future, but he was born into a golden cradle, has immense strength, and now owes him a favor. So it's not bad at all. Mary says her son really overcame divine fever, so both parents thank him, calling him sir. Kim says it was nothing and that he said he'd get it done. Choi flatters his master, too. Woo-Jun was still very drowsy. The woman says it's been a long time since they saw him sleep so deeply, and she doesn't even know how to repay that debt. Jeonju smiles along with his wife, saying that in addition to the promised nectar and the memory chip with the swordsmanship, they'll provide a success bonus. And Kim tries to stay humble. They both insist he accept the 1 billion won, saying it's little compared to what he did for their son. Kim accepts, since refusing it would only hurt their feelings again. Choi jokes in the car that the warrior basically won the lottery. The warrior says he knows they're gorgeous. While driving, the director asks if he's going to drink the nectar now, and Kim agrees, saying he plans to take a break from dungeons for a while. Choi says that's understandable. He doesn't want to attract the attention of the Order of the Old Priest or of those who've heard about his rewards. But it's a shame because if he refined the nectar and drank it afterward, his mana would increase a lot. Kim agrees with his words, thinking that if he refines it and drinks later, it could significantly raise his superhuman level instead of having to spend resources to cure divine fever. Arriving at a hotel building, Choi calls out to the warrior and says he'll find the necessary equipment to refine the nectar, and he should consider drinking it later. Kim smiles and thanks him, saying he'll think about it. He uncursed the nectar, saying he's going to drink it right now since he learned how cruel the world of Arcane Sue can be during the servo incident, and he can't guarantee the director won't betray him. With the traits of medicine, addiction, mana absorption, and potion dependency, he can maximize the nectar's effects anyway. Throwing the bottle to the floor, Kim begins to feel pain, saying it feels like every muscle fiber is being broken down and rebuilt, and an incredible amount of mana is being stored inside him. Being completely tormented by the potion, Kim suddenly opens his eye. Lighting up the entire building with the explosion, he reaches superhuman warrior level 2, and by curing divine fever with a nectar, he acquired Black Flame and gained one of the best great traits in the entire game. Black Flame was added to his skill list along with mountain-crushing swordsmanship, and he feels relieved. He'll be able to focus on training those skills without issue. His phone starts vibrating. He wonders why Director Choi is messaging him out of nowhere, but decides to do nothing and continue training. However, the calls keep coming more frequently. Kim asks why the rush. The warrior had received a string of messages telling him to grow stronger and not to care about criticism. So he wonders what this nonsense is since he doesn't usually text like that. But he notices the message says from the mountains, and it's not a name. There are capital letters. Reading about running from a gang, Kim realizes he hit a message within the text. The Dagger Gang is a group that opposes the Iron Fist Gang. And if the director had wanted to betray him, he would have called like always to stall, but considering he sent that message, it means he was caught first. It seems the information was leaked while he was trying to prepare the equipment. Kim becomes completely uneasy about it, saying he'll ignore it for now. He already got the nectar he wanted, and in Arcane Sue, everyone is responsible for their own lives. A scream is heard in the alley. A man says the gentleman was really stubborn because even after an entire night, he still won't say where the rookie superhuman is. Choi says he signed a contract because he trusted him and will never talk, so it doesn't matter what they do. The man says he didn't want to resort to this, but now he has no choice. Grabbing an axe to attack him, asking which arm he wants to lose, right or left. And if he doesn't answer, it'll be the right one by default. An explosion goes off in that building. The man asks what the hell that was as a subordinate calls his boss, and he asks what's going on outside. Injured, the henchman says there's a bastard out there. A sniper scope was locked onto the room because Kim was launching grenades toward the building and says the Dagger Gang picked the wrong person to mess with. You can't just abandon someone who keeps their word in this cruel world of arcane soul, saying it's all good now because he's going to start the war and launches a grenade shot, blowing up the gang's area. He was armed with his sword. The gang members ask where the shot came from in order to find him. Kim says as expected, they're scrambling out of the building like cockroaches. And even though it looks like a normal apartment complex, he knows it well. Because this is the Dagger Gang's dungeon that he cleared until exhaustion, a complex dungeon made up of 6 different buildings. Since the Dagger Quest is one of the tutorial missions, he can finish it with his eyes closed now. So, he gets ready to run, saying that from this point on, the veteran's going to complete the mission. The gang members look around trying to spot Kim, asking if it could be the Iron Fist gang attacking, since they're the only ones crazy enough to do this, and they'll beat them to a pulp once they catch them. But then they hear a sound. One of them turns and asks what that was, deciding to check it out. Going behind a trash bin and asking what it was, seeing nothing there until a hand grabs his face, slamming the gang member to the ground. Kim reflects that the guy couldn't recognize him, even while standing right in front of him. And there's no better combo than playing dead in stealth for infiltration. So, while those idiot gangsters were wandering outside, he's going to enter the main building, sneaking in through the secret entrance to the base, and decides that for now, he's avoided combat as much as possible to get inside. Since the Dagger Gang loves to place their hostages right next to the boss's room on the 5th floor, he's still got a long way to go. He moves stealthily to avoid being caught, but an alarm goes off, announcing that enemies have infiltrated the building, and all members must arm up and gather at the designated meeting point. Kim complains that they already found out. He heads to a door to infiltrate deeper. The gangsters talk about the minigun while Kim targets their weapons and feet. They call for a counterattack while cursing at Kim. He tosses a grenade into the air, causing another explosion in the building. Kim says taking the long way isn't his style, and one grenade isn't enough. He fires off all his remaining grenades. Explosions erupt, as he says it's great because they really enjoyed his little gift. The smoke in the room clears. Kim looks at the bodies on the floor, wondering if that's all of them, but there must be a survivor. He can't let his guard down, and one of the gangsters pulls a gun, shouting for him to go to hell, firing at Kim's face. But the guy just dodges, having unlocked the sensory trait. Now that he has the trait he needed for this dungeon, it's the gangster who's going to hell. So, he punches him, saying he's heading up now that all the weaklings are dealt with. He climbs the stairs slowly, thinking he may have made it to the 4th floor without a problem. But the real danger starts now. There will be gang members waiting on the 4th floor right before the 5th and the boss room. Sneaking along a wall to observe, Kim is startled by what he sees ahead. Because there's no one there, not even in the bedroom, he thought something was strange, and he needs to focus. Acquiring the focus trait, Kim hopes he can hear something from the floor above. Noticing a drone flying by which drops a grenade to the ground, detonating a flashbang, Kim complains that it's just to blind him. An assassin approaches from behind, trying to stab him stealthily, and wounds his shoulder. The Dagger Gang's boss calls him a little rat, and says he caught him, but Kim blocks with his shield and asks who he thinks he caught. The assassin backs off, asking how his dagger didn't pierce through. Backing away from Kim, the warrior asks if he's not the one acting like a rat, and who exactly he thinks he's calling that. Reflecting that he didn't expect the boss to show up on the 4th floor, and that was dangerous because this wasn't a game. But he managed to read the patterns. As the flash grenade exploded, Kim closed his eye, thinking that a flash is the usual pattern for a chain attack when entering a boss room, and he had to equip sensitive and focus before the boss appeared. The leader of the Dagger Gang was an assassin, and he had to rely on his 5 senses to feel where the attack would come from. The assassin complains that Kim blocked his ambush, and Kim tells him not to be so surprised, drawing his extendable beton and saying he'll make him regret choosing him as a target. He charges at the assassin. He attempts a horizontal slash. The assassin comments that he's acting way too cool for someone so slow. Throwing a dagger at Kim, the weapon gets closer and closer to the warrior, but hits and deflects the dagger away. He reflects that, as expected of an assassin, he was fast, and he only survived thanks to his sensitive and focused traits. There was poison magic imbued in that guy's dagger, and even the slightest touch would send Kim straight to his grave. The longer the fight dragged, the worse it would get. The assassin says he was lucky, and if he surrenders now, he'll only take one of his arms. Kim tells him to stop talking crap and come at him. That gang leader laughs, saying he can tell he's a shooter just by how poorly he holds the sword, and he's got a big one, too. The warrior reflects that he was assuming his class was a reinforced soldier just because he used firearms. Then the assassin charges, saying he'll tear him apart and kill him in the most painful way possible. Kim says he only has one chance, raising his katana, and now the enemy had his guard down. The assassin says he's too slow. Kim turns his face, breathing in, while spinning the direction of the katana, executing a reverse slash toward the assassin, who who didn't expect a shooter to use a combo attack. So, he crouches and blocks the strike with his dagger. Kim apologizes to him, but once he switches his traits, he's no longer a shooter. He's now a classic warrior armed only with swordsmanship, using the first style of mountain-crushing swordsmanship, landing a slash on the man's shoulder with a mountain smash technique. The assassin screams, spitting blood. He falls to the floor, while Kim breathes heavily, saying that the moment he dropped his guard, he'd lose. The assassin prepares to strike again because it wasn't over yet. Kim asks if he was playing his final card. Blood splatters across the apartment windows. The assassin collapses on the floor. Kim has the sword stuck in his abdomen. The warrior says he dropped his guard at the end, and the poison was already circulating through his body, so he needs to switch his traits, switching to regeneration abilities and healing the part of his belly. Kim gets up, complaining that he can still take it, but it hurts a lot. The gangsters receive orders to head up since there's an intruder in the building. So, Kim says there's no time to waste. He has to get out of the building as fast as possible. In the Dagger Gang's 4th General's room on the 5th floor, Director Choi falls from his chair, thinking he has to get out of there quickly, but someone appears in front of him. Kim asks how he ended up getting caught since he was pretty tough, and Choi asks if he came to rescue him. The warrior says they should get out first because others are on their way, and the director agrees. He tries to stand without assistance. Kim curses the gangsters for what they did to him, telling him to get on his back. Choi hesitates, but the warrior says they're in a hurry to get somewhere safe. He thinks that even after suffering so brutally, the director still remained loyal. And while Arcane Su seemed like a hellish world, he can still be surprised by touching moments like this. So, they head to Shinzu's agency, drinking several healing potions. Kim acquires the poison resistance trait and says that drinking the potions flushed the poison from his system. Choi shows up with more cans and tells him to feel free to drink them all, but Kim declines, saying he's already had enough. The director says there's no way to apologize enough because the information was leaked while he was preparing the nectar and he shouldn't have trusted his staff. Kim agrees since he already drank the nectar anyway, leaving the director stunned. But the boy says that if he hadn't drunk it, he wouldn't have been able to save him. Toy complains because he had to drink such a precious nectar to save him, and Kim reflects that it wasn't his fault, but he would let him think whatever he wanted. A knock is heard at the agency's door. The director wonders if the Dagger Gang had already arrived. He asks what they should do while Kim turns around and says they should welcome the guest, opening the door and being surprised because it was the Iron Fist Gang and its leader, Kim of the Iron Fist. Kim welcomes the group. Iron Fist says it's absurd to think he wiped out the Dagger Gang, as he knew Kim wasn't just any guy and asks why he called him there. Kim thinks it's because it's his turn to receive the reward for the difficult mission. The Iron Fist Gang and the Dagger Gang are rivals fighting for power over the Silemeria. In the game, the tutorial asks the player to eliminate the Dagger Gang to help Iron Fist by destroying the Dagger Gang. The Iron Fist offers many rewards. He then asks if Kim is planning to create an organization or something like that. And Kim denies it, saying the reason he was there today was to say he could keep the Dagger Gang's territory because he prefers to be alone and has no intention of entering the underworld. So this was the best way to repay his debt from before. Iron Fist says it's an offer where he loses nothing, and it sounds a bit too much for just a debt. Kim jokes that they're on the same page now, because now that he owns the Silmaria, he should grant him a wish, and Iron Fist asks to hear it first. Kim reflects that it's something everyone likes to have. He wants a house for himself. Iron Fist repeats the request. Kim explains that he works alone in this harsh world and realized he needs one, complaining that his stomach was injured during the fight with the Dagger Gang. So the gang leader agrees since Kim got rid of their rival gang. The warrior praises how straightforward he is. Iron Fist Kim asks what kind of house he prefers between a luxury mansion and an apartment, but the guy declines, saying he needs a secluded house with guaranteed security and soundproofing. And also he needs a training facility in the basement. The gang leader repeats that, and says he has a house with those specs while Kim crosses his fingers. The house was located on the outskirts of Slum, right at the top of Jonybon. Kim reflects that this is the exact house given to the player as their first base in Arcane Soul. He relaxes at his table and says this is what it's like to have a real home, and he loved how pure the air was there and the view was perfect. Such a beautiful and magnificent house. Kim comments that when he first fell into Arcane Soul, he had no idea what to do since the hospital bill was around 20 million won. But now he has a house that's closer to a palace. Not only that, he has the money from Security Number 1 and Director Choi, enough to stay in the hospital for a whole year without worry. But here in Arcane Su, there's no time to enjoy success. As soon as the game's plot progresses, evil villains like the Saint of the Old Priest Order will appear and destroy the city. Kim picks up his pickaxe because now it's time to look for the real reason he chose this house. Heading to the underground training facility, saying it should be somewhere around here. And now they're going to work. He strikes the stone wall. Everything collapses in front of him, leaving him surprised. He comments that it seems like his skill is working and he might finish this faster than expected. Digging downward as fast as he can, Kim complains that he didn't know when he played the game that the treasure was buried this deep, but there's no turning back now, and he was going to get out of there soon. A liquid begins to seep from the stone. Kim starts to drink that water, gradually regenerating with energy. And he loved that taste because he could feel his body healing in real time. And that's the effect of the mana spring. A spring full of mana. Even characters whose HP drop to 0 can recover quickly when soaked by the mana spring. And most debuffs disappear, showing its incredible therapeutic properties. The place where he could access such an amazing mana spring for free was none other than the John Yubong house, and the first base provided by the gang. He had to go through a lot to get there, unlike the game where you could do it with a single click. He was so full of vitality that he could easily feel the effect. Grabbing one of his swords, he comments that the mana source has such incredible effects that it's perfect for training because he can recover quickly if he runs out of stamina and then go back to training. Now, it was time for the first and only ultra-efficiency training for free-to-play rankers. At nightfall at Kim's mansion, he thinks it had been 2 weeks since he locked himself in the training room. And now, in this state, he can calmly activate the black flame. Mana begins to wrap around the sword. Ken raises his sword high using the first style of mountain, splitting swordsmanship, Mountain Crush. Then he charges forward with the second style, Mountain Divide, and finishes with a thrust using the third style, Mountain Pierce. Kim comments that he's now used to combining mountain, splitting swordsmanship with the black flame, not to mention the useful traits he gained during training. He says he's completed the training goal, and there's only one important thing left to do. The mana cultivation technique. If he had refined the nectar before drinking it, he could have reached superhuman level 3. But now that he's at level 2, there's still some mana left in his body. To fully absorb the mana from the nectar and reach level 3, he needs a mana cultivation technique, but it wouldn't be easy to get one since it costs tens of billions. He goes to the antique shop owned by Kim Chunbok, who asks why he wants to buy it. The shopkeeper comments that it had been sitting in the storage for over a decade, and Kim confirms the purchase, thus acquiring the mana cultivation technique. He was probably the only person who knew about the mana cultivation technique hidden in the antique shop. And now, he heads to the Shenwan market where the antique shop was located. He arrives at the store and notices something strange at the door, wondering why it was closed. And not only that, the doors were locked with a mana seal to prevent anyone from entering. Shenwan Market had the highest number of stores in the region, and there was nothing you couldn't find there. In the game, during working hours, this place would be open no matter what. So, he wants to know why it's closed, especially because of one fact. Most other stores also close except for this one, making the place completely deserted. Kim wonders if the world of Arcane Sue is different from the one he knows. A man was crouched beside a door. The young man shows up and asks if the market situation has been bad lately, thinking that even the shop owner whose store was still open didn't seem to be doing well. The old man asks if he can't tell, just by looking, since with gangs fighting every day, there's no way people would go there. And Kim comments about it being gang territory. That store owner curses the Iron Fist gang, saying that ever since the Dagger gang was wiped out, the smaller gangs have been fighting each other every day. Kim repeats about them fighting among themselves. In the original game story, the Iron Fist gang destroys the Dagger gang directly and claims their territory as their own, which naturally puts Shenwan Market under their control. But this time, he was the one who destroyed the Dagger gang. And because of that, the market became a battlefield with other gangs trying to claim it. Kim questions why that's happening. While gangsters wage an endless war, the warrior says he's going to take a look at them first. Members of 2 gangs were clashing, and the leader of the attacking group says that the territory belongs to the Poison gang, telling the Iron Fist gang to get back to their corner, and that woman is the Poison gang's vice leader, Steel Scorpion. The Iron Fist member calls them bastards, but someone else shows up asking what the hell kind of mess is going on in his territory. A group of men in their underwear. Scorpion complains that the perverts have arrived, but the exhibitionist, vice leader of the Naked Gang, says that this is his territory. Scorpion tells him to quit the nonsense and get lost, and the exhibitionist asks if they're really going to keep committing that sacrilege. The Iron Fist gang member thinks they're all lunatics and that he should get out of there. Kim appears and comments that it's a mess, and the gang member recognizes him as the one who wiped out the Dagger gang. But the warrior tells him to get up and do his job, ordering those damn thugs to stop fighting and gather up. And he tells the Iron Fist gang member to calm down because he'll help him, reflecting that to get the market back to normal, he'll need to establish a hierarchy. The Scorpion woman asks Hubie thinks he is to dare tell her what to do. The exhibitionist questions if that was an offer. Kim reflects that if he fought with all his strength, he might be able to win, but that could cause unnecessary damage to the merchants. So he needs to show his strength first, preparing his combat stance. The Scorpion repeats the names of his techniques: mountain-crushing swordsmanship and divine fever. And the exhibitionist asks if he was the one who annihilated the dagger gang alone. Kim says that's right, and that he'll be generous this time, making them an offer they can't refuse to settle things with one-on-one fight. The vice leader of the Poison Gang asks if he thinks she's stupid enough to face a warrior one-on-one. The warrior says they'll compete in the category she feels most comfortable with, so they stand face-to-face. He asks if the man's specialty is mind control, because if he resists, the victory will be his. And the naked man says it's an honor. Such a beautiful man. He wants to forget the competition and have Kim join the religion of the primordial goddess. But Kim asks why he would ever join such a disgusting cult, since their religion isn't even part of the 7 nor listed among second-tier ones. Just a random cult. He wouldn't join a pseudo-religion, not even registered under the Peace of Westphalia. The naked man says that's expected from a non-believer, and he'll make sure to reshape Kim's mind with the love of his goddess, preparing his skill and commanding him to kneel before him, offering the opportunity to meet his goddess. Kim reflects that the mind control of priest class was definitely strong. His eyes narrow. He wants to kneel before the man, but he interrupts the control by punching the man in the face. The guy falls to the ground, groaning. Kim reflects that not even the saint could influence him. As the members of the nudist gang decide to retreat, the guy turns to the Scorpion woman, who comments that he's not so bad. But the Poison Gang is on a whole other level than those perverts. Kim says he doesn't believe it, and will only find out when it starts, because if her specialty is poison, she should give him the strongest one she has to drink. The girl jokes that since he's so willing to throw his life away, she'll help him with that. A member of the Iron Fist gang says drinking poison is basically asking to meet the creator. But Kim says he's pretty confident.